Welcome back to Team Oil Drop. I have wanted to make this video for quite some time. In fact, I finally sat down, thought about everything I wanted to talk about, jumbled it together in my mind, and we are just going to lay right into it. Now, I want to go over a brief intro real quick on or preface what I'm about to tell you. Everything I'm going to say, for the most part, is factual, and if anything is subjective or opinion-based, I'll let you know. I have never had any affiliation with Toyota. I paid full price for my 4th gen truck. The 4th gen, my 2024, is actually the 6th Tacoma I've owned. I've owned in no particular order a 2005 4-cylinder, a 2006 4-cylinder, a 2009 V6, a 2013 V6, of course the 2016 V6 that you've seen so much of on the channel, and now the 2024 4-cylinder or i4 inline 4. So I've got a lot of Tacomas under my belt. I might as well say on the side real quick, of all the Tacomas I've owned, which is almost exclusively the only vehicle I've driven for the last 2026 now, for about the last 15 years, I've almost exclusively driven either Tacomas or had an old Jeep Wrangler on the side. Granted, old's a key word. Anything after the TJ models were soccer mom trash, and you have ducks on your dashboard, and it's just, don't get me started down that rabbit hole, but Jeep Wranglers are not what they used to be. Anyway, I'm going to try to avoid tangents as much as possible, but I want you to know that my opinion on the 4th gen has not changed. It's always been cautiously optimistic from the beginning of the announcement, and then it kind of led into, wow, okay, I'm actually somewhat impressed, and to now where I am. You know what? I think Toyota did a bang-up job. I think they've done something rather great here. So if you came here to hear more rage baiting or just like an echo chamber of bashing on the 4th gen, you're on the wrong channel. Again, Toyota doesn't pay me. Toyota probably hates me, or at least dealerships probably hate me, because I've ran polls on this channel before, and if I were to guess a number now, we've probably stolen from Toyota dealership service centers, upwards of $50 million in labor alone at this point, because y'all use this channel and your own two hands to do what pretty much anyone can do, and you learn how to do it in the process, which is everything what Team Oil Drop is all about. DIY, everything. But back again, let me try to stay focused here. Your attention is currency. Now, when I say that attention is currency, what does that mean? When the 4th gen was announced, similar to when the 3rd gen was announced, the internet crucified it before anyone actually drove it. I mean, you can see article and YouTube video after article and YouTube video about how turbos are trash. The 4th gen is only an inline 4-cylinder. Most people that made those videos don't even know what inline means. They just say something like it's a 4-cylinder, or they might even say something as stupid as it's a V4. I mean, come on. So what do I mean by attention is currency? When you go click on those fake videos and you spend a few minutes watching, those people that put those videos out are just greedily counting the seconds you watch so they can see the ads during the ad breaks that you're watching, and they say, yes, I've made more pennies. I hate all that crap. Oh, I hate it so much. The fake video echo chambers surround it. It's just misinformation, and it bothers me so much. People that don't know anything about crap will make, you know what? Let me get my heart rate down, and we're going to jump back into why you clicked this video. But the 3rd gen and 4th gen have some major differences, and they are worth diving into in a bit of detail. So let's just start out with the most obvious one, the engine change between the 3rd gen and the 4th gen. So the 3rd gen carried over its 4-cylinder option, the 2.7 2TR-FE that was available in the 2nd gen. The 2.7-liter inline 4 engine was one of two options in the 3rd gen. Then you had the 3.5-liter V6. Now, both these engines are naturally aspirated, meaning there's no turbo, but let's go over these real quick. So the 2.7 liter on paper, 159 horsepower and 180 foot-pounds torque. Okay, excuse me. The 2.7 liter I had a 2 or 3 of. Excellent engine. Slow, god-awfully slow engine. My very first Tacoma was a 2005 2.7 liter 5-speed manual regular cab, and to this day that was probably my favorite Tacoma. I love that stinking thing so much. But the reason I want to talk about it is when I bought it used from a guy, he already had 33-inch tires on it. They looked great and all, especially to, 23 years old at the time. I don't remember. They looked great and all, except when you'd get on the highway and you had a headwind, good luck. I mean, it was almost as dog slow as driving my 4-cylinder Jeep Wrangler I've got in my garage that puts out a massive 105 horsepower. So, super slow engine, that 2.7. Great for around town, can do highway driving. You're not towing hardly anything but a garden trailer with it, but that engine lasts and lasts and lasts. Of all the engines we're going to talk about here today, that 2.7 liter is known to be a million-mile engine. There's an example or 2 or 3 now of that engine specifically exceeding 1 million miles, where the odometer clocks out at 999,999 and does not roll over anymore, and it just continues. So yes, the 2.7 liter, weak but bulletproof. Okay, moving on. All right, so the third gen had the ever more popular and more mass-produced by far 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6 to 2GR-FKS. All right, great engine, really good engine. On paper, 278 horsepower with 265 pounds-feet of torque. Now, the engine in its factory state was notably slow, and I need to elaborate a little bit. It's not so much the engine, but the tune that came with the engine from the factory. The way Toyota tuned that engine to meet EPA standards and just be kind of, underwhelming was almost the bane of the third gen's existence in my mind. There were days with my untuned 3.5 liter 2016 Tacoma, I just wanted to buy something else. I'll be honest. I'm not a fast driver, but the gear hunting, which we'll talk about more in a little bit, and the very underwhelming off the line acceleration was almost too much for me to deal with. Now, other than that, the 3.5 liter has proven itself to be already a 500,000-mile engine and counting. There are many examples now of over 500,000 miles on these trucks. They really are on these engines. They really are great engines. You're not going to go wrong if you own this engine and you take care of it. It is very old school. It's simple. There's no turbo. Obviously, there's no supercharger. It's just a basic V6 engine. Now, quick thing, when I say V or I or inline 4, so the inline 4 2.7 liter and today's 2.4 inline, there's only one cylinder bank. The cylinders are in a line or an I formation, while a V6 or V8 have you means there's 2 cylinder banks in the shape of a V. So I just wanted to give you just a basic idea of inline and V. I'm going to be overlaying some pictures here, some graphics once I add some video and pictures here to make that make more sense. But moving on. Yeah, so those 2 engines in the third gen were your options. Moving on. The fourth gen has the 2.4 liter turbo inline 4. In its factory, and now there's 2 options. There's the hybrid as well, but starting with the non-hybrid, the factory numbers on paper are 278 horsepower and 317 pounds-feet of torque. Okay. Well, there's a detuned version. You could call it detuned for the SR model, where it only puts out 228 horsepower and 243 pounds-feet of torque. But what most people are driving, including myself, is I have the TRD Off-Road, the standard tuned version of the engine at 278 and 317. Okay, you're thinking, well, the horsepower is identical to 3.5 liter. Clearly, there's more torque, but let's just talk horsepower for a second. The 2.4 liter non-hybrid feels significantly better than the third gen off the line. It's not, you can't really direct compare it to a tuned 3.5 liter because the tuned 3.5 liter feels different. How can I put this into words? With all my extensive years behind the wheels of these trucks, here's a good way to put it. The factory tuned 3.5 liter in the third gen was underwhelming and felt like you were driving a minivan. The factory settings of the non-hybrid 2.4 liter turbo fourth gen, which by the way is the T24A-FTS engine, feels like a truck should. Now, some of y'all here are probably like, oh, how can that be? It's a turbo inline 4. And I want to respond with, so is every other midsize truck, minus a select few Rangers pretty much. They're all turbo inline 4s. Welcome to 2026. Welcome to modern times. But that 2.4 liter turbo non-hybrid feels like what a truck should. Very low RPMs. You immediately, practically, there's no turbo lag. You feel that torque immediately. And again, I'm a light foot, but it pulls like a truck should. It feels extremely capable compared to the naturally or factory tuned 3.5 third gen. Again, 278 horsepower, 317 pounds-feet of torque. Now, I've driven for a few days. I've tested, they let me borrow it, the hybrid version of it, where its numbers on paper are 326 horsepower and 465 pounds-feet of torque. So, cool. I did not find a massive difference. Now, does the hybrid push you back in the seat more when you floor it? Yes, it definitely does. Does it feel like a race car? No, by no means. It feels like a powerful mid-sized truck, most definitely. I purposely avoided buying the hybrid due to my own reasons of I did not want even more technology in my truck. Batteries don't last forever. Batteries don't last forever, and I just did not want the extra hybrid motor tucked away inside my truck, just in case. It's just one more thing I did want to deal with. But most importantly, I did not have a need for it. I did not have a reason to have that extra oomph. Again, I'm a light foot. I don't need speed. I'm about to be, I'm 35 years old in a couple days here. I don't care. I'm not in high school anymore, and I don't need to see how much horsepower I can get out of my trucks. I just don't care. Some people might, and that more power to you, but me, I don't care. All right. So major changes between, let's just wrap that up real quick on the engine category. Major changes between the third gen and fourth gen. Again, fourth gen, no matter what you choose, is turbocharged or turbocharged and hybrid. You have significantly more low-end torque, and you don't have a V6 option anymore. So third gen, you had two options, or two engines, and fourth gen, you have one engine with two options, or one engine where you can either have a non-hybrid or a hybrid. Some of the trims, like the Trail Hunter and the TRD Pro, only come hybrid. And then other trims like the TRD Sport or the TRD Off-Road, like I have, can come either or. And you know my thoughts now, but I am a non-hybrid guy all the way. And I'm very grateful I went with that route, no looking back. Those with or considering the hybrid, don't let me scare you away from it. It's just something I did not want, mostly because I did not need. Okay, let's move on to the transmission. Okay, transmissions. So the third gen came with two options, as does the fourth gen. But the third gen had a 6-speed manual, which was fun, or you had the 6-speed automatic, which was criticized heavily, not by just me, but by anyone that owned the truck and had a brain. Now, some people might say, well, it was plenty good for me. Well, brother, it's an expensive truck. All Tacomas always are. Every vehicle's expensive these days. Toyota should not have given us the third gen with its indecisively shifting automatic transmission, where it would do this thing called gear hunting. Here's an example. So I was previously living in Colorado and going up and down the hills of Colorado Springs or cruise controlling down the highway. The truck could not decide if it wanted to be in fourth gear, fifth gear, or sixth gear at any given time. And it would just cycle through RPMs constantly. In fact, it was so bad, and this is all of them really, it was so pre-tuned, but it was so bad that if I would be on a long trip and I'd let my wife drive, I would be woken up eventually by the RPMs, not redlining, but closer to 3,000 RPM instead of me keeping it down at like 18, 1900, 2,000 RPM, just because she's got it cruise controlled and she wants to go a little quicker, say 75 miles an hour. Well, the truck says, okay, if we're going to do 75, I'm just going to downshift and stay in fifth the entire time. I'm not going to give you sixth gear because there's a mild wind outside. And that 6-speed automatic was hurting. Okay, you know what? Let me make an metaphor, an allegory, comparison, whatever, what have you. The 6-speed automatic, great transmission, great hardware. It's a great computer with a bad operating system. So let's just say that you had all the hardware, but you put the wrong operating system on it. Well, people like OTT, Overland Taylor Tune, fix that by giving us a tune that not only helped the engine have some pep in it in the low range, but also eliminated gear hunting. So if you have a third gen, this video is not to make you buy the fourth gen, but if you have a third gen, you're watching this, as many of you do, and you don't have the tune, please go check it out. It will change your life and make you thoroughly enjoy that truck. But yeah, a tuned 6-speed automatic in your third gen feels significantly better and will stop hunting and gear hunting, I should say, down the highway or going up hills, and it's just so much more pleasant to drive. Okay. The fourth gen also has 2 transmission options. It's got a 6-speed manual again, only in non-hybrids, but it's got a 6-speed manual. What most people have is the 8-speed automatic, including myself. I have the 8-speed automatic. Okay. I still find humor in, if anyone asks me, how am I liking my fourth gen? Has my transmission failed on me yet? I mean, when the Tacoma dropped, they had a manufacturing issue that led to a solenoid, one or more, I can't remember now, solenoid stuck in the transmission that were not allowing proper fluid flow, and the transmission would eventually kill itself. Okay. Automatic transmissions are very intricate, meticulous things, and Toyota screwed the pooch a little bit on its introduction to Tacoma and had a very small but notable limited number of Tacomas that had this issue. They had a whole VIN number search. You could see if you fell into the range or not. I ordered my 2024 truck and had it built, let me think. I had it September of 2024. And I think the trucks were hitting the lot, was it May or June of 2024? Anyway, my truck was built about 6 months after they started showing up, and I was not affected. I was outside the VIN range, but other people were. Toyota did the right thing and said, look, if you have any transmission problems, we're just going to give you a new transmission. Toyota knows how to deal. Toyota knows how to fix their mistakes. Look what they did with the Tundra. For 1 or 100,000 Tundra and Sequoia engines, I can't remember how many that were affected, they said, got it, you're in this VIN range, we're just going to give you a new engine. That's a lot of money, but at least Toyota did the right thing on that. But here's what I'm getting at. So yes, the introduction of the fourth gen with the 8-speed, they screwed the pooch mildly. There was a limited number that had issues. Those are gone now. No one's really talking about it anymore. That's not to say it still can't happen. But the stuck solenoid actuator is no longer a hot topic. So if you're looking for YouTube videos with catchy headlines that say, recall, I can't believe it, and some stupid guy like pulling out his hair with an AI generated picture, it'll be a while because, people don't care anymore and they're not falling for that clickbait as much as they were, because I think a lot of people are seeing the 4th gen is doing a pretty dang good job. And we'll talk about sales here in a second, just because I like talking about things like that and I like statistics, but let's move on. Okay. Brakes. Major difference between the 3rd gen and the 4th gen. The 3rd gen had drum brakes in the rear. Toyota swore up and down all day. Drum brakes are better in certain off-road scenarios, maybe in sand, etc. Whatever. No one cares. I don't care. And there were diehards that would sit there and back them up. I don't want drum brakes on a truck. They were one of the last manufacturers, if not the last in North America, to still offer drum brakes on a truck in the rear. Obviously we're talking about the rear here. And finally, the 4th gen said, you know what, we can't keep slapping our trucks with dinosaur parts, and we're going to give you disc brakes like every other manufacturer out there. So yes, the 4th gen has disc brakes all the way around. Thank goodness. The 3rd gen, regardless of what configuration you got, was disc in the front and drum in the rear. Drum brakes are fine and they last a very long time. They're just such a dog to maintain compared to disc brakes. And honestly, drum brakes historically were invented after disc brakes. Check that one out. But so they're both dinosaurs, really. Drum brakes are just a lot more tedious to maintain and change the shoes out on versus simplicity of pads and a rotor of disc brakes. All right, moving on. Power steering. Obviously, both 3rd and 4th generations have power steering. Every vehicle does now. But the 4th gen did away with hydraulic power steering. There's no longer a fluid pump. It is an electronic motor. And, how can I... So, 3rd gen, regular power steering feels great. Cool. When you turn your wheel all the way left, all the way right, you can hear you can hear the motor whirring a little bit and your RPMs drop a little bit because it's trying to supply extra power to the motor. Cool. That's no longer a thing. I drove my 3rd gen my dad's 3rd gen, then I sold it to him just the other day. And then after driving my 4th gen, and this is such a little thing, but the 4th gen turns significantly easier with that electric motor and at all speeds, including at a standstill. So like most modern vehicles have, electronic power steering is the future, and I personally am glad to be rid of a unnecessary fluid, being power steering fluid in our vehicles, and an unnecessary pump. I like the electronic power steering a lot. I think it's going to be very useful off-road also when you get in sticky situations and it's harder to turn the wheel. I think the electronic motor is going to do quite well. Since we're on the topic of steering, the 3rd gen, and now this is more for long beds, but if you take a long bed 3rd gen and a long bed 4th gen and you turn in a parking lot, the 3rd gen, because I had a long bed and my 2016 was a long bed and my 2024 is a long bed, the 3rd gen will turn circles around the 4th gen. Turning a 4th gen long bed is almost a joke in a parking lot. It drives like a full-size F-150. It's like turning a ship at sea, trying to dodge an iceberg. The 3rd gen just had a much tighter turn radius. So if you, long story short there, if you're considering buying a 4th gen Tacoma for off-road purposes, not overlanding purposes, but like off-road purposes through woods, tighter terrain, I wouldn't even consider the 4th gen just because of its lack of decent turn radius. And that's not something you can fix. You're just going to have to live with it, other than heavy modifications that don't exist yet. So yeah, there's all that. Moving on, frame on the 3rd gen. The 3rd gen, very traditional ladder frame. Like any other truck, it was not a fully boxed frame. It's a U-shaped frame, plenty strong, good frame. Gets eaten by rust like every other vehicle on the road, but Tacomas are notorious for it. Honestly, I live up here in upstate New York now. Every vehicle around here is a rust bucket if you don't spray it with an undercoating, and I've got videos on that. But yeah, 3rd gen frame, very standard, very standard. The 4th gen is a fully boxed in frame. They call it TNGA-F or TNGA frame. And what does TNGA stand for, you think? Toyota New Global Architecture. If that's not some Skynet sounding term right there, acronym right there, then I don't know what is. But the TNGA frame, it's a style that's shared with the Tundra, the Land Cruiser, the Sequoia, and most modern frame-on vehicles that are non-unibody framed vehicles that Toyota's putting out now. It's just their new style. It's stronger. It's lighter. It's stiffer, which is very important. It's better in crash testing. And most importantly, if you're off-road or you're flexing, it's got less flex in it as well. So it is a huge mechanical upgrade compared to the 3rd gen. Now, this is not to say the 3rd gen is not a good frame. I'm not going to take anything away from the 3rd gen. They just improved on the 3rd gen with the 4th gen's frame. Since we're talking about frame, we might as well talk about suspension real quick. So if you didn't know already, the 3rd gen has leaf springs in the rear, like most, or not most, but many trucks do. Yeah, most trucks do. Leaf springs in the rear. I'll say many. A lot of trucks switched over to coil, including the 4th gen. The 4th gen is coil suspension in the rear. You're going to have a softer, better ride in the rear. I won't talk too much about like subjective pros and cons of coil versus leaf off-road. I'm also not a big off-road guy, but the coils feel great. I have no complaints whatsoever. So, I guess here is one small complaint. It's easier if you're going to do a cheapo block lift, like a small spacer lift, like you could on a 3rd gen with leaf springs. It's going to be more expensive to do on a 4th gen because you can't just put a metal shim under those leaf springs anymore. You have to modify a little more and pay a little more money. But so be it. I don't care. Not my avenue. Not my. I don't have a. Not my dog. Not my fight. You heard it here first. Not my dog. Not my fight. Moving on to, let's talk about cost, base costs, and we'll talk about sales. Okay. So as of 2026, and this one might shock you, but all midsize base model trucks are in the low 32,000 price range now. And Toyota did something funny. When you go and look at Chevy, Nissan, Ford for the Ranger, and Toyota's website, when you look at the base price, guess which one is the cheapest base price of all of those? Yes, the Tacoma. Now, do people go in and buy base model trucks all the time in any of those? No. But does Terminex and the termite and bug companies and paint shops and stuff go buy base models like an SR? Oh, sure. So that's important to them. I've seen already multiple companies rocking SR trim basic Tacomas now. But what I'm getting at is when someone says, well, it's a $60,000 truck. Well, you can go to any of those manufacturers' websites and build any of those trucks out, and you can get a $60,000 truck. An argument can be made for the Ford Ranger in its Raptor format that you're getting a great bang for buck compared to the Tacoma, and I won't argue on that. It really does look good on paper, sure. You're still driving a Ford, so you just won't tell anyone you bought the Ford Raptor, Ranger, or whatever. But hey, you got cool, good for you. Now, this is a 3rd gen versus 4th gen discussion here. So I want you to know, let's say you're in the market, you don't own either Tacoma right now, and you're thinking, hey, I should go buy a 3rd gen. Cool. 3rd gen prices are still very, very high, and they're not going to go anywhere. And we're talking like 3rd gens with 20,000 or more miles on them. We're talking like, here's a good example. So my TRD off-road, out the door after everything, and it's trimmed out pretty nice, was $50,000. If you got the same truck in its full setup like I just listed, in a 3rd gen, 4-wheel drive, lockers, TRD off-road, let's say there's only 10,000 miles on it, you're going to probably spend out the door $42,000 ballpark, assuming you've been with a 2022, 2023, it's low mileage, etc. So you have to ask yourself, do I want to spend a little more and get the 4th gen, or save a little money and get someone else's leftovers in a 3rd gen, which is fine. I know it sounds like I am overly promoting the 4th gen, but I'm mostly doing this just to get rid of all the stupid misinformation that just plagued the internet for the longest time. And I have enjoyed seeing the winds shift on Reddit, on the forums, on Tacoma World and stuff, when people were just echoing the same BS over and over again. Now they're quiet because they realize, hey, the 4th gen is pretty dang good. In fact, for 2025, Toyota sold 275,000 4th gen Tacomas. That is more than any previous year of Tacoma sales of any generation ever in history since the dawn of time, or since Tacoma became a thing. But what I'm getting at here is people have faith in it now. They understand that the 4th gen's got a good thing going for it. So much so, since we're talking cost, base cost, sales, etc., if you look at the Kelley Blue Book resale value of all vehicles in North America, not just trucks or midsize trucks, but all vehicles in North America, guess who's number 1 for 2025? The Toyota Tacoma has the highest resale value of any vehicle on the road. And it's always been high up there, but never before has it been first in resale value. It's always been number 1 in pretty much always number 1 in midsize trucks. Very high up in all trucks, if not number 1. But highest now of any vehicle on the road. So I think that's enough on cost, base cost, sales, 3rd gen versus 4th gen, a little bit of tangents on resale value, etc. But all of these things are things you should definitely keep in mind in the long run. Moving on. Okay. The next chapter is going to be aesthetics. And this is subjective. This is purely opinion based, but so I'll be short on it because your opinion might not be the same as mine. The 3rd gen is the best looking Tacoma that has ever been made. I think the 3rd gen is a better looking truck at most angles than the 4th gen. There, I said it. When the 4th gen first debuted, I thought it had a excessive bout of what I like to call, at least in my own little brain, tundritis. What does that mean? To me, that means that it, in its base model, it's ugly as sin. But when it gets a little bit of love and a little bit more meat under it, tire-wise, or even the tiniest lift, it starts looking really good. When you take off the stupid air dam that some trims came with, it really helps. But the 4th gen in its base model is not a very good-looking truck, in my opinion. In fact, this might offend some 4th gen owners that have the short bed. I think the 4th gen short bed is kind of silly looking compared to the 3rd gen short bed. It just doesn't look right. I can't put my finger on it. However, if you are of the superior line of Toyota Tacoma drivers, 4th gen drivers, and if you got a TRD off-road in bronze oxide with a long bed with 285 7017 Falcon Wild Peak AT3Ws and a peak suspension, 1.5 inch lift on the front, your Tacoma, 4th gen Tacoma, is better than everyone else's. I'm just kidding. But what I'm getting at is, tundritis, we like to call it. Like the Tundra, the 4th gen is kind of dog ugly until you do a little bit of love to it. Then it looks like a really sharp truck. So again, subjective, my own thoughts on that. All right, quick bit on fuel. The 4th gen has the slight advantage, and your usage and mileage may vary on this, but I tend to get around 20 miles to the gallon of mixed driving. I was getting 19 miles to the gallon mixed driving in my 3rd gen. So to me, not even really worth mentioning. All right, 3rd gen versus 4th gen. Interior comfort, cabin noise, room, etc. 4th gen, huge advantage to comfort and quietness or cabin noise compared to the third gen. That's not to say the third gen was terrible, but the third gen was more bare bones. It was louder on the highway. The fourth gen offers much more comfortable and spacious seats. The rear bench is no better than the third gen. They both lack space. I always laugh a little bit inside when I hear someone say, yeah, but can you fit 17 full-size adults in your Tacoma? And I think you never could in any mid-size truck from any manufacturer in North America ever anyway, because it's a mid-size freaking truck and no family of 5 adults buys a mid-size truck. So yes. Oh, well, you can make a joke about TRD Pros with their stupid isometric seats. Those things are goofy. And they do take up some of the legroom you could have had for medium-sized children in the back. So I get that. Don't buy any Tacoma of any generation. If you have kids that are in car seats like I did, it's a dumb move, but I like my Tacoma, so I will suffer in partial silence or drive my wife's Grand Highlander, which is a vehicle I love a lot anytime we're on trips. So the Grand Highlander is the trip vehicle, and plot twist, I chose the Grand Highlander with the exact same engine that I have in my Tacoma because I like the engine that much. All right, moving on to mod availability. So the Tacoma has always been and will always be the Glock of trucks. You will always have a ton of aftermarket support, more so than any other handgun or truck out there. You might drive the Ford Ranger, which is going to be like the Smith & Wesson M&P line. Cool. Most older guys want it. Your dad probably has one. Or you might drive, what's the next one? Why am I blanking here? Or the Colorado or Canyon, which, by the way, was the second best-selling midsize truck to the Tacoma, but didn't even sell half of what the Tacoma did in 2025. But let's say the Chevy Colorado and Canyon's like a... what do I want to give them? I like the Canyon Colorado. Let's give them... I'm not going to say Springfield XD. Thank God that line's finally dead. Anyway, I'm going to stop comparing the guns. What I'm getting at here is the fourth gen and third gen Tacomas in general, massive aftermarket offerings. I had tons of mods on my third gen that were fun, and I have tons of mods in my fourth gen, and I'm constantly adding because it's fun. And there's just the aftermarket support is better than any other midsize truck, probably any other truck for that matter out there on the road in North America. I don't know. F-150's got a lot of users, a lot of buyers. So there's going to be massive aftermarket support there. But we're not talking about full-size goofball trucks. We're talking about midsize trucks, namely the Tacoma. Okay, moving on. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, mod availability, they're equal. The third gen obviously has way more parts because it was out. It's been out for a lot longer, but the fourth gen is rapidly expanding its mods availability. All the big names are like Backwoods Adventure Mods, etc., are coming out with their lines of fourth gen parts. Long Range America, shout out. Give us that larger fuel tank. Oh, that's something I needed to talk about. Probably my single biggest complaint of the fourth gen is the weenie size fuel tank they gave us, the 18.2 or 18.5, the 18.2 gallon fuel tank they gave us. They could have stuffed more under there and they didn't. They should have, because it needs to be bigger. It just does. Which also leads me to the complaint about the fuel meter, the range meter in the truck will forever be annoying and incorrect, but I'm not going to talk about that in detail. Not on this video. I got other videos for it, and this video is already getting kind of long. But where was I? Oh, yeah, okay. Tire sizes. Third gen, fourth gen. Each of them have a maximum tire size you can put on them, and it's unlifted factory height format. So the third gen looks like it was built to take 265, 70, 17 tires, and that's what I've always put on my third gen. I just found a great deal for my dad with the third gen. I sold him the 2016. He put AT4W 265 70 17s, and it looks darn good. The fourth gen, my truck, they did a really, really good job. I'm sorry, let me back up. You can put larger tires on a third gen. You're just going to have to trim things or lift higher. But this is for people like me, everyday drivers who don't want to do either one of those things. The fourth gen, gives us ample room without trimming or lifting higher for 285/70/17, which is about equivalent to a 33-inch tire. The 4th gen was just made for larger tires, and Toyota knew that. And it really looks good in my opinion. So yeah. Moving on to kind of the power and acceleration. We talked about the 3rd gen and its lackluster acceleration a little bit, and how the 4th gen is quite a bit better. So I'll just hit on it one more time. The 4th gen feels like a truck should. The 3rd gen is extremely lackluster until you give it a tune. You don't need the hybrid in the 4th gen, in my own opinion. It's fun. It's a novelty in my mind, but it's excessive and unnecessary, and that's just my opinion on power and acceleration. So we've talked about a lot of things, and I'm sure I forgot some things. I want your opinions between the two in the comments below. If you have anything bad to say about either generation, please do it with experience, or I don't care what you say, but do it with experience and not just reading some sensationalized, goofy YouTube video headline or something. It's important to avoid echo chambers, and all things in life, avoid echo chambers. They are the devil. But yeah, my final thoughts on this is the 4th gen is a significant improvement, for lack of a better word, over the 3rd gen, but you don't need to upgrade. The 3rd gen is still an extremely viable, extremely capable truck that will last many, many, many years. It will do well by you for as long as you maintain it. If you want a more modern feeling truck that is better irrefutably at towing, is tiny bit better on gas, significantly more comfortable in the cab, just feels, yeah, like I said, way better acceleration. Just overall, it's a refined, improved midsize truck, and you're in the market. The 4th gen is probably your better option. I don't care what you buy. Go get yourself a Nissan Frontier before they go bankrupt and get bought out by Honda. That's cool. Yeah, whatever you want. But I just want to give you the facts and my opinions on top of that, a little icing on the cake of what I think the differences between the 3rd gen and the 4th gen are. The 3rd gen is a great dated truck. Drive it till the wheels fall off. Your resale value on the 3rd gen will stay high for many years to come. I think it's inflated right now because of the still mild fear tied to the 4th gen and the diehards not wanting to move into the 4-cylinder turbo. So if you're thinking about selling, there's probably no better time than now. That's just an opinion again, but slightly inflated resale value on the 3rd gens, and the 4th gen, yeah. It has exceeded my expectations. On a closing note, I meant to say this when we talked about engines earlier, but Toyota knows enough about engines. And I say this after Tundra had a massive issue, but Toyota knows enough about engines to, before they stuff that T24A-FTS into 15 different models of their vehicles around the world, including some in Japan, they can only get in the Middle East, etc. Millions of vehicles at this point across 15 models. They probably did a little bit of research. And if in North America, the most competitive market where the money is readily available, if they're going to put it in their flagship 4Runner and flagship Tacoma, the flagship of the generation that wants not too big, not too small, but just right, they're not going to put trash in there. And I think they did a really good job with the engine. I will not give you future projections on how long I think that engine will last. It is too soon to tell, but that engine has been doing excellent since 2021, and I think it's 54% of the components that were originally in the Lexus NX 250, or excuse me, 350 back in 2021. 54% of its components went unchanged for the Tacoma. The other 46% were beefed up or slightly modified for the truck. So Toyota had 3 years of refinement before stuffing that engine into the Tacoma, 4 years of refinement before stuffing into the 6th gen 4Runner. And I think they did a good job. So all that to say, thank you for hanging out. If you got any questions or experiences, please let us know below. We pretty much always get back to y'all to the best we can. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time. Team Oil Drop.